Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. My name is Nathan, and this is the story of how my life took an unexpected detour. I never thought I'd be sitting here, unpacking the unraveling of my marriage. But when the person you love, the mother of your children, makes a choice so careless, so undeniably self-serving, it forces you to reassess everything. So, let me take you through what went down, how I navigated it, and why. In the end, she was the one left with nothing but remorse. When I married Emily, we hashed out our future together with care. We sat down over coffee in our tiny Charlotte apartment and talked about what we wanted from marriage, family, and our roles. I was already climbing the ladder at a tech firm, so we decided she wouldn't need to work. Our dream was simple: a steady home for our kids, with their mom always there, fully engaged, guiding them through every step of growing up. I made sure she had it all: a cozy house in a tree-lined neighborhood, financial stability, even a cleaner who came twice a week so she wouldn't feel buried under chores. Over the next decade, we built what I believed was an unshakable family. We had 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, and after the third, we both agreed we were done. 3 felt right. Life wasn't perfect, sure. There were squabbles, late nights, and moments we got under each other's skin, but that's just how it goes. Nothing ever suggested our roots were weakening. Then the cracks started showing. It began subtly after our youngest turned 4. Emily started disappearing in the afternoons. No word, no warning. I'd come home from the office, expecting to hear her voice or the kids' laughter, only to find a still house. No Emily, just our children, left waiting for a mother who didn't think to tell them where she'd gone or when she'd return. The first time my oldest, Lily, called me at work, I didn't think much of it. "Dad, Mom's not here. She's been gone a while," she said, her tone uncertain. I told her not to fret. Maybe she was at the grocery store or caught in traffic. But it happened again and again. Lily's calls grew more frantic. At 11, she was thrust into watching her younger siblings, wondering why their mom kept vanishing. I call Emily, but it went straight to voicemail. When she finally answered, she was nonchalant, almost annoyed. "Oh, I just stepped out for a bit," she'd say like it was trivial. When I asked where she'd been, she'd sidestep. "Just picking something up. End of story." I tried addressing it. I told her it wasn't safe to leave the kids alone. Our youngest was only 4. What if something went wrong? An accident? A stranger at the door? She barely reacted. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Nathan. They're fine. I'm not gone that long." That's when I knew something had changed. This wasn't the Emily I'd married. The woman who once planned our kids' days with precision now acted like they were an inconvenience. I kept trying to get through to her, but she'd tune me out, shrug it off, make me feel like I was the problem. One Saturday afternoon, I was home with the kids, building a puzzle on the living room floor. Emily wandered in, sank into the couch, and started scrolling her phone. After a bit, she let out a long sigh. I asked what was up. She hesitated, then said, "Nathan, I feel worn out. I love our kids, but sometimes I feel stuck." I was stunned. Stuck? In the life we'd chosen together? I kept my cool, tried to be there for her. "If you need a breather, let's take a family trip," I suggested. "Maybe the mountains, Asheville, a cabin, some help with the kids. A reset could do us good." I thought she just needed a break. But she shook her head. "No, I don't want a family trip. I want a girls' trip." That's when it clicked. She wanted to take off with some old friends from college, women I didn't know well, but had glimpsed on social media. They were unattached, always posting about bar hopping in Atlanta or beach parties in Charleston. Drinks, late nights, different guys in the frame each time. I wasn't okay with it. "Emily, I don't think that's a good idea," I said, keeping my voice even. "These friends, I see what they're about. Partying, drinking, who knows what else. You're a married woman, a mom of 3. A trip like that doesn't fit." She bristled instantly. "You're so controlling, Nathan. You don't trust me. I'm still my own person. I don't need your approval." It blew up from there. She accused me of trapping her, of not caring about her joy, of turning her into a servant instead of a partner. I stayed steady, said I wasn't against her having fun, but we had a family to consider. If she needed time, we could work it out together. She didn't want to hear it. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door, and that was that. A few days later, I was buried in code at my desk when my phone rang. It was the school. "Mr. Carter, no one's picked up your kids," the principal said, concern lacing her voice. "We've been calling your wife, but she's not responding." My heart sank. Emily always got them. It was her thing. I called her. Nothing. Texted. Silence. Called again. Voicemail. Dread took over. I grabbed my keys, barely explaining to my team as I bolted out. The drive to the school was torture, every stop sign stretching time, my mind spinning with possibilities. When I arrived, the kids were in the front office with a teacher, backpacks at their feet. They ran to me, relief on their faces. "Where's Mom?" my son asked. I had no clue. We got home, and the house was empty. Then I saw it, a note on the counter. I opened it, and my chest tightened. Emily had left for a girls' trip. She wrote that she needed this and deserved it after years at home. She knew I didn't agree, but she went anyway. No plan for the kids, no notice, just gone. I read it twice, shock battling rage. She'd picked this over us, over them. A flicker of relief hit. She wasn't hurt, but fury swallowed it fast. That night, I couldn't sleep, wrestling with it all. What made this trip worth risking everything? The freedom, the nightlife, a taste of her past? When had our family become a weight instead of her world? By dawn, I decided. She'd made her move. Now it was mine. The morning after Emily's note sank in, I knew I couldn't just sit there stewing. My kids needed me, and I wasn't about to let her reckless choice unravel their lives any further. I called my boss at the tech firm and took emergency leave. No way was I leaving them alone again after what she'd pulled. My first move was practical. I hired a nanny. Her name was Carla, a steady, no-nonsense woman who'd raised her own kids and knew how to keep a house running. She started the next day, and just having her there brought some calm to the chaos. The kids took to her fast. She wasn't their mom, but she showed up, and that was more than Emily had done lately. Next, I called a lawyer. His name was Mark, a guy I'd met through a work friend, sharp and straight-talking. I laid it all out. The note, the school calling me because Emily ditched pickup, the fact she'd left without a plan for the kids. I handed him the letter, her own words admitting she'd bailed on us. Mark didn't sugarcoat it. "Nathan, this is a strong case for emergency custody. She abandoned her responsibilities, and you've got proof. We can move fast." I didn't hesitate. "File it," I said. I wasn't about to let her waltz back in like nothing happened and call the shots. Then I took another step. I cut her off financially. The joint account we'd shared for years? Frozen. I called the bank, explained the situation, and locked it down. If Emily wanted to party with her friends, she could fund it herself, not what the money meant for our home, our kids. While I got things in order, I kept everything documented. That note she left? Saved. The school's call log showing they couldn't reach her? Printed. Every text I'd sent her that went unanswered? Screenshotted. I wasn't playing around. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting my kids. And they were already feeling it. My youngest, Ben, started waking up with nightmares, crying for his mom, confused why she wasn't there. Lily, the oldest, got quiet, too quiet for an 11-year-old. One night, she came to me while I was making dinner. "Dad," she said, her voice small, "why did Mom pick a trip over us?" I froze, spatula in hand. What do you say to that? I knelt down, looked her in the eye, and said, "I don't know, kiddo. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't enough, but it was all I had. 7 days after she left, Emily came back. I was in the kitchen with the kids, helping Ben with a coloring book, when the front door swung open. She walked in, tan and tousled, dropping her suitcase with a thud. "No, sorry. No, how are the kids?" "Nothing." She looked around, then glared at me. "Why's my car not working, Nathan? I had to borrow money just to get through that trip. You owe me for every penny I spent." I almost laughed at the audacity. She ditched us, and her first concern was cash. I didn't bite. Instead, I reached for the envelope on the counter, the one I'd been holding on to, and handed it to her without a word. She snatched it, ripped it open, and scanned the contents. Then she smirked. "Divorce papers? Really, Nathan? You're this petty." She tossed them on the table like they were junk mail. "You're not serious. This is just you throwing a tantrum." I stayed calm. "Read them again, Emily." I'm not bluffing. She didn't believe me. Thought it was a scare tactic, that I'd cave like I'd done with smaller fights before. But this wasn't a spat about dishes or bills. This was her choosing herself over our family, and I was done. When she realized I wasn't backing down, her tune changed fast. She got a lawyer within days, ready to fight me tooth and nail. She went for custody, claiming I was overreacting, that cutting her off financially was vindictive. She spun this story about being a devoted mom who just needed a break, like a week of clubbing with some noble quest for self-care. But the evidence wasn't on her side. Since I filed first, I had temporary custody. The kid stayed with me while the court figured it out, and Emily had to move out. She crashed with one of her party friends at first, some woman named Tara who lived in a cramped condo downtown. It didn't last. Those friends weren't the let-you-stay forever type. The legal process stretched on, as divorce cases do when kids are involved. Emily threw everything she had at me. She argued she'd been the primary caregiver, that I was too busy coding to parent. But Mark was ready. We showed the court the call logs, how many times the school had to track me down because she was AWOL. We had her note, her own confession of walking out. We had Carla's testimony about stepping in because Emily left us high and dry. It was a paper trail of her neglect, and it was airtight. The kids' input sealed it. Lily was old enough to talk to the judge, and she didn't hold back. She told him she felt safe with me, that I was the one who'd been there when Mom wasn't. Ben and Sophie, too young to testify, still showed it in their own way, clinging to me, settling into the routine Carla and I had built. The judge didn't need a magnifying glass to see who the steady parent was. He granted me full custody. Emily got supervised visitation, short, monitored meetups, no overnights. It crushed her, but not enough to change her story. She kept playing the victim, like this was all my fault for not letting her breathe. Without my income, her life unraveled fast. She had no job, no savings, just a lifestyle she couldn't sustain. She tried for spousal support, but the court shot it down. She was able-bodied, had chosen not to work for years, her mess, not mine. She burned through what credit she had, borrowed from friends who got tired of her quick, and soon she was drowning. That's when the regret kicked in. The call started, first a trickle, then a flood. Texts, voicemails, all pleading. Nathan, I messed up. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'll be better, a better wife, a better mom. Please, let's fix this. I didn't bite. She'd had her chance, and I wasn't in the business of empty promises anymore. One night, she showed up at the house, eyes red, voice shaky. Nathan, I was overwhelmed. I wasn't thinking straight. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids. I just needed a break, and I handled it wrong. I see that now. I let her talk, let her spill every excuse, every sob. When she finished, I looked at her. You told me you felt trapped, Emily. You said motherhood was suffocating. She shook her head, tears streaming. I didn't mean it like that. I love them. I cut her off. You're free now. No kids to tie you down. No husband to answer to. You got what you wanted. She crumpled right there on the porch, hands over her face. I turned and went inside, closing the door. That was the moment I knew I'd made the right call. She'd picked her path, and I'd picked mine, protecting my kids, building something solid. But the story's not over yet. There's more to how this played out, and I'll get to that next. With Emily out of the house and custody settled, I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong. The next few months were a grind, a mix of keeping the kids steady and fending off Emily's attempt to claw her way back into our lives. Full custody didn't mean she'd given up. It just meant she had to fight harder, and she did. But every move she made only dug her hole deeper, while I focused on rebuilding what she'd shaken. The kids were my priority. Carla stayed on as the nanny, and between us, we got a rhythm going. Lily went back to soccer practice. Ben started sleeping through the night again, and Sophie, the little firecracker, was back to her chatterbox self. They still asked about their mom sometimes, Ben especially with his big, searching eyes, but I kept it simple. Mom's figuring some things out, but we're okay here. I didn't badmouth Emily to them. They'd figure out the truth on their own someday. For now, they needed stability, not drama, and I gave them that. School drop-offs, dinners around the table, bedtime stories. I was there for all of it, and it started to feel like a new normal. Emily, though, Her life was a freefall. Without access to our joint account, she had no cushion. She'd never worked during our marriage. Not because I forced her to stay home, but because she'd wanted to. Now, that choice bit her hard. She couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd taken for granted, let alone the legal bills piling up from fighting me in court. She'd moved out of Tara's place after a couple weeks. Turns out crashing on a couch loses its charm fast when you're not pitching in. From what I heard through mutual friends, she bounced to another friend's apartment, then a cheap rental on the edge of Charlotte. She was scrambling, and it showed. Her supervised visits with the kids were a mess from the start. The court set them up at a community center, neutral ground, with a social worker watching. The first time, she showed up late, hair messy, still in last night's clothes from whatever she'd been up to. Lily told me later Emily spent half the visit on her phone, barely talking to them. Ben came home quiet, Sophie clingy. I asked Carla to keep an eye on how they acted after those visits, and she noticed it too. Every time, they were off, like Emily's half-hearted presence confused them more than her absence. I documented that too, just in case. The social worker's reports backed me up. Emily was disengaged, distracted. It wasn't hard to see she was more interested in proving a point than being a mom. Meanwhile, the divorce dragged on. Emily's lawyer pushed every angle, claiming I'd alienated the kids, that I'd overreacted to her one mistake. She even tried saying I'd been emotionally distant during our marriage, too focused on work to support her. It was nonsense, and Mark shredded it. We had the facts, her disappearing acts, the school calls, that damn note. Plus, my pay stub showed I'd been home every night, hardly the absentee husband she painted. The judge wasn't buying her sob story, but she kept at it, dragging things out with motions and delays. It cost me a fortune in legal fees, but I wasn't budging. This wasn't about spite. It was about my kid's future. Her money ran dry fast. She'd maxed out her credit cards on that trip, flights, hotels, bar tabs, and now she was dodging collectors. Friends who'd lent her cash started dodging her too. One night, she called me, voice slurring. "Nathan, I'm broke. I can't even pay rent. You got to help me. You can't just leave me like this." I didn't flinch. "You left, Emily. You figured out how to pay for that trip. Figure this out too." She hung up, cursing me out. A week later, she tried a different tack, showing up at the house again, this time with a grocery bag, like she was auditioning for Mom of the Year. "I brought food for the kids," she said, forcing a smile. I took the bag, generic cereal, and some bruised apples, and told her to leave. "Visitations at the center, not here. You know the rules." She stormed off, muttering about how cold I'd become. Then came the big play. She filed for a custody modification, claiming she'd turned things around. Her story? She'd been depressed, overwhelmed, and that trip was a cry for help. Now she was better, ready to be a full-time mom again. It was a Hail Mary, and she sold it hard. Tears in court, a cheap suit she'd probably borrowed, the works. But Mark was ready. We brought the social worker's logs from her visits, showing she'd missed two already and barely connected when she showed. We had texts she'd sent me, flip-flopping between begging and blaming. And Lily, God, that kid's strength, spoke to the judge again. "I don't feel safe with Mom," she said, voice steady. "She's not like Dad. He's always there." The judge didn't need much more. Modification denied. Custody stayed with me. Emily's facade cracked after that. She stopped pretending she had it together. The calls turned desperate. Late-night voicemails, sobbing about how she'd lost everything. "Nathan, I didn't mean for this. I love the kids. I love you. Please, give me another chance." I didn't answer. She'd had a million chances every time I'd asked her to think about what she was doing. She'd chosen differently. Now she was living it. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Carla became a fixture, firm but warm, like a favorite aunt. Lily started opening up more, even joking again. Ben's nightmares faded, and Sophie's questions about Mom slowed to a trickle. They weren't unscathed. How could they be? But they were resilient. I took them to therapy, too, just to be sure. The counselor said they were coping because they had consistency, me, Carla, a home that didn't shift under their feet. Hearing that felt like a win, but it didn't erase the ache of knowing their mom had checked out. Emily's life kept spiraling. Word got back she'd taken a job, some low-end retail gig, barely enough to cover rent. She'd burned every bridge with her old crowd. The party girls didn't want a broke, mopey tag-along. She was alone, and it was sinking in. One afternoon, she showed up at the school, unannounced, against court orders, trying to see the kids. The principal called me, and I got there fast. She was in the parking lot, yelling about her rights as security held her back. The kids didn't see her, thank God, but I had to explain later why police were involved. "Mom's having a tough time," I said, keeping it vague. Lily just nodded. She got it. That incident got her visitation suspended. The court didn't mess around. Showing up like that violated everything. She was down to nothing. No money, no friends, no access to the kids. And that's when the real regret hit. She'd gambled our family on a week of freedom, and she'd lost it all. But my story's not just about her fall. It's about what I did next, and that's still coming. By the time Emily's visitation got suspended, I'd stopped expecting her to pull herself together. She'd show me who she was over and over, and I was done hoping for a miracle. My focus shifted fully to the kids and carving out a life that didn't hinge on her chaos. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Meanwhile, Emily's world kept shrinking, and her desperation started spilling over in ways I couldn't ignore. This part's about how I held the line and what happened when she finally ran out of moves. The kids were my anchor. With Carla's help, we'd built a routine that worked. Lily was back to her old self, sassy, smart, acing her math tests. Ben found his footing too, obsessed with building Lego sets that took over the dining room table. Sophie, the youngest, started preschool and came home with glitter-glued crafts and stories about her best friend Mia. They still had scars. Ben sometimes asked if Mom would ever come back, and Lily's trust in people took a hit, but they were healing. Therapy helped. The counselor said it was my consistency that kept them grounded, and I clung to that. I wasn't perfect. Some nights I burned dinner, and I forgot Sophie's show and tell once. But I showed up. Every time. I lean on my own support too. My sister, Rachel, lived an hour away in Durham and started coming by more. She'd bring her 2 boys, and the house would fill with noise. Cousins wrestling, pizza boxes stacking up. It was messy, loud, and exactly what we needed. My crew at work stepped up too, covering shifts when I had to duck out for school stuff. I'd always been the guy who kept things private, but letting people in showed me I didn't have to do this alone. The kids deserved a bigger circle, and I was building it piece by piece. Emily's life, though, it was a wreck. That retail job didn't last. Word was she got fired for showing up late too many times. She'd moved into a run-down studio apartment, the kind with peeling paint and a flickering hallway light. No more Instagram posts of cocktails and sunsets, just silence. Mutual friends stopped updating me. Either they cut her off or she'd stopped reaching out. Her calls to me tapered off after the school incident, but I knew she wasn't done. She was too stubborn to let go without a final swing. It came one rainy evening. I was helping Lily with a science project, something about volcanoes, when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there was Emily, soaked, mascara streaking down her face. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Nathan, please," she started, voice breaking. "I've lost everything. I can't do this anymore. I need you. I need the kids." I didn't let her in. "You're not supposed to be here," I said, keeping my tone flat. She stepped closer, reaching for the doorframe. "I know I screwed up. I know it. But I'm their mom. You can't just erase me." I held my ground. "You erase yourself, Emily. You don't get to show up now because you're out of options." She didn't back off. "I was wrong, okay? That trip, it was stupid. I thought I needed it, but I didn't. I need my family. Please, Nathan. I'll do anything." Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw the woman I'd married, scared, vulnerable. But then I remembered the note, the school calls, Lily's question. Why did Mom pick a trip over us? I shook my head. "You had your chance. You don't get to undo this because it's hard now." She sank to her knees, sobbing, rain pooling around her. "I love them. I love you. Don't do this." I shut the door, not out of cruelty, but because staying soft had gotten us here. Lily peeked out from the hall, eyes wide. "Was that Mom?" I nodded. "She's going through some stuff. Let's finish that volcano." She didn't push it, but I knew she'd heard enough. That wasn't the end. A week later, Emily tried the legal route again, filed a motion to reinstate visitation, claiming she'd stabilized. She got a new job, a cashier gig at a gas station, and rented a slightly less awful place. Her lawyer argued she'd hit rock bottom and was climbing out, that the kids needed their mom. Mark wasn't worried. She's got no proof of real change, he said. 1 month at a job doesn't erase a year of neglect. We went to court, and it was quick. The judge reviewed her history, missed visits, the school stunt, the social worker's notes. Then he asked me about the kids. I told him the truth. They were thriving, but fragile. Uprooting them now would undo everything. Lily spoke again, quieter this time. I don't want to see her yet. I'm scared she'll leave again. The judge denied the motion. Emily sat there, head down as the gavel hit. After that, she went quiet for a while. I heard through Rachel she'd started drinking more, picking fights at bars, getting kicked out. Her new job didn't stick either, fired again back to square one. She was a ghost of herself, and part of me felt the weight of that. I didn't hate her. I just couldn't save her. She'd built this mess, brick by brick, and I wasn't tearing down my kids' piece to fix it. For us, life got brighter. I took the kids to the coast that summer, Wilmington, a little house by the beach. We built sandcastles, ate too much ice cream, and laughed until our sides hurt. Lily learned to boogie board, Ben chased crabs, and Sophie got sunburned despite 3 layers of sunscreen. It was the first time in months I didn't feel Emily's shadow over us. Back home, I started coaching Ben's soccer team, and Sophie joined a dance class. Lily asked to repaint her room. Purple, her new favorite color, and we made a weekend of it, paint smudges on our clothes and pizza for dinner. It wasn't the family I'd planned, but it was ours, and it was good. Emily's last gasp came months later. A letter, handwritten, slipped under my door. No begging this time, just raw. Nathan, I'm sorry. Not for a second chance, but because I see it now. I threw away the best thing I had. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say it. I read it, folded it, and put it in a drawer. It didn't change anything. She was still a stranger to the kids, still a risk I wouldn't take. But it closed something, a loose end I didn't know was still dangling. The kids kept growing. Lily hit middle school, Ben lost a tooth, Sophie danced in her first recital. I got a promotion at work, bought a bigger couch for movie nights. Emily faded from our daily lives, a memory they'd unpack later when they were ready. I'd be there for that too. But there's one more piece, how this all settled and what I learned. That's coming next. By the time Emily's letter arrived, life had settled into something solid, something mine. The kids were thriving, I was steady, and her absence wasn't the gaping wound it once was. That note was her final echo, a whisper of regret that didn't pull me back. This last part isn't about her anymore. It's about what I built from the ashes, the lessons I carved out of the mess, and why, in the end, I came out stronger. The kids were my North Star. Lily turned 12 and started wearing eyeliner, testing boundaries like any preteen. Ben, at 8, was all about soccer, scoring goals and begging for new cleats. Sophie, barely 5, danced through the house in her recital tutu, leaving glitter everywhere. They weren't untouched by what happened. Lily still got quiet sometimes. Ben asked about Mom less, but with a weight behind it, and Sophie barely remembered Emily's voice. But they were okay. More than okay. Therapy kept us honest. The counselor said they'd carry this, but it wouldn't define them. I made sure of that, showing up, listening, keeping our home a place they could trust. I grew too. Work leveled up. I took on bigger projects, brought in more clients, and the extra cash let us stretch a little. We upgraded the backyard. Swing set for Sophie, a goalpost for Ben, a hammock where Lily read her novels. Rachel and her boys were regulars now, turning Sundays into chaos I secretly loved. Friends from work became family too. Barbecues, game nights, the kind of stuff I'd never made time for before. I even started running again, something I'd dropped when life got heavy. It wasn't the marriage I'd signed up for, but it was a life, and it fit us. Emily's world, from what trickled back, was a shadow. After that letter, she went dark. No more calls, no surprise visits. Rachel heard she'd moved out of Charlotte, maybe to Greensboro, chasing a fresh start. The gas station job was long gone. Someone said she was waitressing now. scraping by. Her old friends, the ones who'd cheered her trip, were nowhere. She'd burned them out, or they'd moved on. I didn't dig for details. I didn't need to. She'd hit bottom, and whether she climbed out wasn't my burden anymore. The kids didn't ask about her much. Lily stopped mentioning the visits. Ben's questions dried up, and Sophie drew pictures of our family with just me and Carla in them. Time did its work. Looking back, this wasn't just about a trip gone wrong. It was about choices, respect, and what holds a family together. I learned 3 things the hard way, and they're worth sharing. First, a parent who puts their own fun above their kids loses the right to call it family. Parenthood's not a switch you flip off when it's inconvenient. It's full-time, no breaks. Emily decided she could pause it, jet off, and leave the kids hanging. I made sure she lost the privilege of being their anchor, because when you ditch your own, consequences follow. Not out of revenge, but reality. Second, when someone shows you they don't value you, believe them the first time. I spent years excusing Emily, her late afternoons out, her brush-offs, thinking she'd snap out of it. She didn't. She wanted the perks of our life, security, a home, without the responsibility. When she kept proving she didn't respect me or the kids, I stopped pretending she'd change. People don't shift because you hope they will. They shift when they decide to, and she never did. Ignoring that cost me time, but not anymore. Third, don't tolerate disrespect. It's a crack that only widens. The second Emily put her wants over our family, I drew the line. Letting it slide early, those unexplained absences, the attitude, gave her room to push further. When she crossed into abandoning the kids, I acted. If you let someone walk over you, they'll keep going until there's nothing left. I stopped it cold, and that's why we're standing now. So where are we today? March 28th, 2025? Lily's plotting her science fair project, something with solar panels. Ben's team made the playoffs, and he's convinced he's the next Messi. Sophie's outgrown her tutu, but wants ballet slippers now. Me? I'm good, busy, tired some days, but good. Work solid, the house is ours, and we've got plans for a road trip this summer. Maybe Tennessee, Smoky Mountains. Emily's a ghost in our story, a chapter closed. If she's out there, rebuilding, or still sinking, it's her path now. The kids might want answers later, and I'll help them find them, but for now, they've got what they need, me, Carla, a home that doesn't waver. What would you have done? If you'd been in my shoes, Emily's note on the counter, the school calling, the kids looking to you, how would you have played it? Would you have cut her off like I did, or try to pull her back? Was I too hard, or just hard enough? I'd love to hear your take. This journey's taught me marriage is a pact, not a free pass for one to chase their whims. If they walk away from what matters, let them. Just don't catch them when they fall. I didn't, and we're better for it. That's my story. Thanks for sticking with me through it. If you've been here, betrayal, custody fights, starting over, drop your thoughts. How'd you handle it? What got you through? I'm all ears. For now, I'll leave you with this. Family's a choice every day. I chose mine. Emily didn't, and that's the difference.